All right. Good evening, gentlemen. The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
We're few, but we're mighty. Mighty in spirit, bold in our insights and convictions, willing to share, able to share. Looking forward to your sermons tonight, Alex.
You are. The man of so many words.
I thought I would wake you up, see if he was there.
I was awake.
All right. Okay, let's commit the evening. Father, you've given us your word to build us up, to equip us for ministry, but beyond that also just to draw us into a more intimate walk with you. So we long, Lord, tonight through your word, even through this difficult story of murder and mayhem at times, that you will speak afresh and give us insights and share lessons with us that can help us grow and mature. So we commit our time. May our discussions be profitable. Keep us from rabbit trails. Help us to be selective in what we share, that it would be appropriate, and encourage each other in the Lord. We ask for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Amen.
So the saga continues. Ahab's family is about to be toast. That's not in my Bible, but so last week we did away with Jezebel, but there's more to come. And so we start in on chapter 10, and I'd like to go through this. It's kind of a bloody, sad thing. Jehu is quite a character. All right. So can we pick it up in chapter 10, and let's read down through verse 17 if we can. It's several of you if you want to read a bit and then pass the baton, whatever.
I'll start.
Okay.
Now there were in Samaria 70 sons of the house of Ahab. So Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the officials of Jezreel, to the leaders and to the guardians of Ahab's children. He said, "You have your master's sons with you, and you have chariots and horses, a fortified city, and weapons. Now as soon as this letter reaches you, choose the best and most worthy of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne. Then fight for your master's house." But they were terrified and said, "If two kings could not resist him, how can we?" So the palace administrator, the city governor, the elders, and the guardians sent this message to Jehu. "We are your servants, and we will do anything you say. We will not appoint anyone as king. You do whatever you think is best." Then Jehu wrote them a second letter, saying, "If you are on my side and will obey me, take the heads of your master's sons and come to me in Jezreel by this time tomorrow." Now the royal princes, 70 of them, were with the leading men of the city who were rearing them. When the letter arrived, these men took the princes and slaughtered all 70 of them. They put their heads in baskets and sent them to Jehu in Jezreel. When the messenger arrived, he told Jehu, "They have brought the heads of the princes." Then Jehu ordered, "Put them in 2 piles at the entrance of the city gate until morning." The next morning Jehu went out. He stood before all the people and said, "You are innocent. It was I who conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all these? Know then that not a word the Lord has spoken against the house of Ahab will fail. The Lord has done what he announced through his servant Elijah." So Jehu killed everyone in Jezreel who remained of the house of Ahab, as well as all the chief's men, as well as all his chief men, his close friends, and his priests, leaving him no survivor. Somebody want to take over?
Yeah.
Then he set out and went to Samaria. On the way, when he was at Beth-eked of the shepherds, Jehu met the kinsmen of Azariah, king of Judah, and he said, "Who are you?" And they answered, "We are the kinsmen of Ahaziah. We are the kinsmen of Ahaziah, and we came down to visit the royal princes and the sons of the queen mother." He said, "Take them alive." And they took them alive and slew them at the pit of Beth-eked, 42 persons, and he spared none of them. Wow. And when he departed from there, he met Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him, and he greeted him and said to him, "Is your heart true to my heart as mine is to yours?" And Jehonadab answered, "It is." Jehu said, if it is given me your hand, if it is, give me your hand. So he gave him his hand, and Jehu took him up with him into the chariot. And he said, "Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord." So he had him ride in the chariot, and when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained to Ahab in Samaria till he had wiped them out, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to Elijah. Wow.
I haven't heard this particular scripture read, on Sunday morning. I wonder why. It would have to be rated R or something.
Wow. I guess Jehu took Elijah's word to heart, and then some.
Yeah. As we mentioned last week, it really was part of Jehu was he was commended for fulfilling what God had prophesied about Ahab and his family. Just the cancer had to be removed because it had poisoned not only the northern kingdom, but it had poisoned the southern kingdom as well. And he said, we got to root out this cancer. And at the same time, as we saw in the book of Hosea, chapter 1, verse 4, it was overkill. He went way beyond what God had asked. And so not only Ahab's immediate relatives, or his, the families, but friends and relatives were also thrown in there and were victimized as well. So it was a bloodbath, and it was a terrible time. At the same time, God said concerning Ahab, when you look at all he did, the evil, and his wife Jezebel, all that they had done to introduce Baal worship and murder and violence and evil, this was the final outcome. It was extreme judgment. So let's look at the story a little bit. To us, it sounds kind of gruesome when he says, take these 70 and cut off their heads and bring them in a basket. What was that all about? Why? What's the point of that? Bringing their heads and
just prove that you've done it, I guess.
Yeah.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, and kings often would do that when they'd conquer somebody or conquer a city. They would dismember the bodies and then put them on display as a way of terrorizing people and saying, this will happen to you if you don't bow the knee, if you don't cooperate.
Well, look at John the Baptist.
Yeah. So it was a terrible thing. But at the same time, what was Jehu's strategy here when he wrote the first letter and said, here's what you need to do. And then he wrote a second letter, and he says, okay, I ordered Ahab's family, but then he says, but you killed the 70 princes and so forth. What was his strategy? Why did he go about it this way, do you think?
To divert the blame, to divert the guilt.
Okay.
Well, not the guilt, but the blame onto the other people.
Yeah, it seems to be that in this way, I think Jehu was trying to gain popular support and for his plot to massacre the officials of Samaria. And but I think he was also trying to share the blame with others, so he wouldn't be the sole person. And so he could say, well, yeah, I did this, but look what those guys did, even though it was under his orders. So he was a savvy guy. He was a cruel but intelligent man. So then we read after Ahab's immediate family and relatives and friends and so forth had been cruelly killed. He's on his way back to Jezreel, and he bumps into a guy by the name of Jehonadab. What do we know about Jehonadab? Oh, let me back up for a second, yeah. In verse 12, we read, Jehu then set out and went towards Samaria, and on the way he met some relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah. And so the question is, who in the world are you? And they said, we're relatives of Ahaziah, and we have come down to greet the family of the king and of the queen mother. So why were they going up to see? They didn't apparently know that Jezebel and Ahab's family, that this had happened. Why were they going up there? What does this show about them, do you think? Because he ordered them to be killed. Jehu did.
I think maybe to worship well, the God of the, because they are this was like a cancer, you know. The family they are really introduced that worship of the bell, and the damage was reversed. And until a few 30-something years after all the northern kingdom was destroyed by Assyrians, and so he tried, because I think he has some connection with the they don't know if he, Jezebel and but they are friends, and probably they worship both Bel too, the people of Judah.
So their hearts were corrupted too, or leaning that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were related by marriage to
Yeah,
Ahab's
the
family.
family.
And so he said, it's sort of like when you're getting rid of cancer, sometimes you have to go all over the place to find it. And the roots of cancer were deep into the royal family on both sides because of the influence of Jezebel. And before her, Jeroboam, some years before, who had introduced Baal worship and other things, and he was the first king of Israel. And so the cancer had continued, the corruption had continued, the idolatry and the false worship and all the evil and murder and mayhem had continued in that side. And God says, it's got to go. And so he orders them to be killed as well. And then this Jehonadab apparently is he was a man who the original Jehonadab, he had founded a group of people who were true followers of the Lord, and later they're commended by Jeremiah as being a group. They said, we will not drink wine and so forth. And they had taken vows to keep themselves pure and so forth, and separate. And they were called Rechabites. But at any rate, they were almost like a monastic group. But Jehonadab obviously is not supportive of Ahab and all that went with him, but in the sense of fulfilling God's promise to destroy Ahab and his dynasty, he joins with him at this point. But verse 17 is sobering, isn't it? When Jehu came to Samaria, he killed all who were left there of Ahab's family. He destroyed them according to the word of the Lord spoken to Elijah. I mean, this is a bloody account, and we look at it now and say, how in the world? But how do we sort of process this?
God is a God of judgment. He's a God of love, but he's a God who God was very clear when the Israelites they took over, they get the promised land. It was the order they gave them to clean everyone. Whatever they left it in their order, they said they will be a thorn in the flesh to you if you don't do it this way. And again, the story repeats on the evil comes and they basically destroy. You know, the nation was split and. Again, was the worship of the true God was idolatry, and not only they commit idolatry, they kill almost the prophets of God.
Yeah.
So this is a judgment of God, no doubt about it, because
Yeah.
that's why you see all the circumstances. Why this guy get the guys here, there, seem like he know very clear or they are, or was like a divine providence. We are gotta see the God, you know, thank to the Lord we are now in the age of grace, but God is a God of judgment.
Yeah.
He's both, he's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, thank you.
Dan, the other thing that I see is that the word of the Lord coming through the prophet Elijah was true, and it was going to come to pass. And Elisha picks up on that. So you've got like the true prophets and the false prophets. And the true prophets would be, you know, they would proclaim, and then they would say, mark my words, when these things come to pass, you will know that a prophet has been amongst you. So it's just the word, once it's spoken, it's going to go forth, because these are true prophets of the Lord.
Yeah. Keep in mind that we mentioned it last Monday night as well. Jehu, as we'll see later, was judged himself because he had his problems too, and his share of evil. But he was used by God to execute his judgment. But he in turn later on was judged himself for his actions and attitudes and behavior. So it's not as if Jehu was the saint. Likewise, Nebuchadnezzar was used by God. He was his chosen, and Cyrus later, the king of the Medes and Persians, he also was God's instrument. In fact, he's called he's called a shepherd, God's shepherd, because he helped bring the scattered flock back to Israel. So in that sense, they both were dealt with by God, but they were used by God. And I think that happens today. There's people who you may question their motives, their behavior, their tactics, what they do, but they can also be part of God fulfilling a promise or moving his purpose forward. And just because the end is beneficial doesn't necessarily that the means were justified.
Interesting footnote in this. Such a slaughter may be offensive to modern sensibilities, but it was the previous failure to put to death false prophets that led to Israel's great sin before the Lord.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
It says Deuteronomy 13:5.
Yeah. As both of you have said, all of you have said, because of Israel as a people, their failure to deal with false prophets, their desire to mimic and act out the values and behaviors and beliefs of those around them, the cultural pressure on them. You know, they just compromised and compromised and compromised, and then finally it got to a point where God says, we got to clean this up, we got to fix it. And so the judgment was harsh.
We see that's the progression. Or the nation is started fall, lost the vision of God. They start to go in that way of idolatry, and it's like a downward spiral fall until there was no remedy. And even even the king of Judah, no, he lasts another 35 years more. 722, and Sennacherib was another instrument from God to judge the 10 tribes of the north. But that downward until only in the time of Josiah, the nation was only two kings they removed thy place. Was Hezekiah in the time of Isaiah, and was Josiah, he started ruling when he was 8 years old. And they find the book of the law in the temple because, you see, the nation fall into total paganism.
Yeah.
And even the law, the Moses and everything was lost. You see that how, this is like, now is like in the third quarter, or you see the downfall, all be the first northern king, and later the king of Judah. But,
Yeah.
all of that stay far away from God, little by little, little by little.
That's right. That's true. Okay.
It sounds like too, Dan, it mentions that in here, that now the king's sons, 70 persons, were the great men of the city who were bringing them up. And then you go over here and into verse 11, and they wiped out everybody, including the great men. So
Yeah.
he killed the guys who killed
Yeah.
the sons.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he asked them, "Are you with me?" And they said yes. And then he betrayed them and knocked them off. This is
Yeah.
sound like a replay of The Godfather.
Yeah,
The other
really.
one.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Jehonadab didn't know about the other ones, because every time he asked somebody into his chariot, they ended up dead. It's like, I think I walked this last fight. I'm good, okay?
That's true. Okay, let's pick up this.
Isn't the false prophet one of Satan's strongest weapons?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's true today.
We've never gotten rid of false prophets,
No.
and I don't think we ever will.
No, not until the Lord returns. And Jesus,
Right.
when he
Right.
in Matthew 20, when he's looking at looking ahead at the quarters of time, and says, it will be marked by these, including, he said, don't be deceived,
Right.
don't be deceived, don't be deceived.
If you read the Jewish encyclopedia, they have just list 44 false prophets since the time of Jesus, and lead the people astray. Thousands they die. All the most of it. Bar Kokhba was the one in 126, and already 40. So and now in the church age, I don't know, man.
Jesus said, many will come in my name,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what do we take from this? Do we take from it that false prophets are always going to be around because you can kill as many as you want and you're not going to eliminate them? Another one's going to pop up. It's like the whack-a-mole.
Well, it's like that with leaders. You got,
Okay.
Hitler, and then the next guy, and then the guy in Korea, and the guy, that's, you're not going to get rid of him because somebody else, if we ever get rid of Putin, somebody else somewhere is going to pop up and say something. Hopefully it won't be in this country.
Always in the
Everybody
last
is.
century now, we talk always, when you read the stories of that Bible about shedding the blood. The last century, the 20th century, was more people killed than all the wars, by atheist governments, all the wars that they put together since the time the Spanish Civil War, the Inquisition, the Second World War, the Holocaust of Jews, the Joseph Stalin, the Mao Zedong, they all together, they killed more people than all
I know.
until the 20th century. So we are not far away from the last century. So.
Haven't advanced much.
No, and it's the heart of man is deceitful. Men are swift to shed blood. Their feet are swift to shed blood. One prophet says. So anyway, let's it's incurably evil. So let's read from verse 18 down through 28. Would somebody?
I'll try that if you want.
Oh, good. Go for it.
And Jehu gathered all the people together and said unto them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu shall serve him much. Now therefore call unto me all the prophets of Baal, all his servants, all his priests, let none be missing, wanting, for I have a great sacrifice to do to Baal. Whoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. But Jehu did it in subtlety. He was sneaky. Oh, I put that in there.
That's in my version.
To the intent that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. And Jehu said, proclaim a solemn assembly for Baal, and they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent through all Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that came not. And they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was full from one end to another. And he said unto them that was over the vestry, bring forth vestments for all the worshippers of Baal. And he brought them forth vestments. And Jehu went, and Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, into the house of Baal, and said unto the worshippers of Baal, search, and look that there be here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but the worshippers of Baal only. Keep going?
Yeah, to 28, or someone else, doesn't matter, yeah.
I'll go.
Okay.
Worshippers ordered, killed. And when they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without, and said, if any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, he that letteth him go, his life shall be for the life of him. And it came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the captains, go in and slay them, let none come forth. And they smote them with the edge of the sword, and the guard and the captains cast them out, and went to the city of the house of Baal. And they brought forth the images out of the house of Baal and burned them. And they brought down the image of Baal and brake down the house of Baal and made it a drought house.
Yeah,
A dump, I
a
guess.
latrine.
Latrine is what
Latrine.
mine says, yeah.
Unto this day. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel.
Okay. So what's going on? What was Jehu's strategy here? What was he trying to?
Get them all together. They did all the work themselves.
Bring them all together.
Yeah.
It wasn't much communication.
No, he played him pretty good. He did the sacrifice and everything else right to the end.
Yeah, he has a sacrifice for Baal, all right.
Yeah, and then he had guys on the outside just in case somebody stepped out to take a pee, you know,
Or escape.
or escape,
But-
and killed them all.
So when Elijah destroyed 800, was the Asherah prophets and the 400 of Baal, so almost 1,000. So you think they clean all, you see how many people, so Elijah was not dead not long, after this, and see how many they are again, they again, and they are destroyed, and they keep going until 722. So worship Baal and the other gods, not only. So even that don't stop the people from falling, worshiping that place.
I'm impressed with how these things kind of come to a head. Things are allowed to be there. Evil is just growing amongst the good for some time, and then there comes a judgment. Just like, in today's world. I mean, basically, there's wickedness and there's the righteous, and things are kind of growing together like the wheat and the tares, and then all of a sudden comes Judgment Day, and that came through Jehu this time.
Geographically, where would the people from worshippers of Baal, where would they be in
This is
regards
in the
to
north.
Samaria?
Yeah, in Samaria, that's the northern kingdom. Bill.
Samaria.
Yeah,
Today,
Samaria, that's the capital of the northern
yeah,
kingdom.
today
Samaria.
West Bank, or
But where would
if you
Baal-
want
I mean, in
to.
other words,
Like it today.
he has already slaughtered almost 1,000 people. And you think the news of that slaughter would have somehow spread the next town over? Where
It was
all of a
just-
sudden he's bringing people into.
Yeah, I mean, it was widespread. It was like weeds everywhere. Baal worship was endemic to the northern kingdom, and it was started by Jeroboam, the first king of the northern kingdom, and it just spread and spread and spread. And so when Elijah came and had the confrontation, as we read several
Yeah.
chapters ago on Mount Carmel, it says 500 prophets of Baal, but there were still more around and followers of Baal. Baal was the dominant religion of many groups outside of. It was sort of like the in religion at the time, and it was pervasive in its influence, and it was a hard thing to cut out of the people. But
So, I'm sorry, are these people that are being killed, are these Jews that left and are serving Baal, or are these Gentiles?
no,
or-
they're all Jews. Jews.
They are
Jewish,
Jews.
Yeah, the northern kingdom, and God still longed to redeem and to save and to heal and restore. That was his purpose all along. That's why he kept sending Elijah and then Elisha, and these other judgments came. Let's call them disciplinary acts to try and bring them back. And so there was famine. We saw that was part of it. And then and then the northern Syrian army would invade, and they'd have trouble from all different directions, as if God is trying to get their attention and say, wake up and look what you're doing and what is the results of it. But look at verse 28. So this tells us a lot about Jehu. Someone read that again. Bill, can you read that?
But,
Verse 28.
thus Jehu wiped out Baal from Israel. Did you want to go further?
Yeah, 29 too, I'm sorry.
Okay. But Jehu did not turn aside from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. That is, the golden calves that were in Bethel and in Dan.
Okay. So what's going on here? He got rid of Baal worship, but what did he keep and hang on to?
The gold, the golden calves.
The golden calves at Bethel and Dan. Who put those in there to begin with?
Jeroboam.
Yeah, Jeroboam, the first king. And do you remember why did Jeroboam build that worship center in Dan, the far north, and in Jezreel, the Samaria area? Why did he do that?
To keep them up there to
Keep them
worship,
there, yeah.
up there instead of going down south to worship.
He says, this is just as good as what they got down south. You don't have to travel all the
It's
way
too
down
hot
to
down
Jerusalem.
south.
It's too hot anyway. Mosquitoes and, it's nice up here and cool. And, but basically, it was, they saw these calves of Bethel and Dan, sort of like the golden calf, remember, that Aaron and company created? They saw these calves as they felt they were legitimate expressions of God. They didn't see them as idols, cast as idols that God had totally forbidden. I mean, what's the first commandment and the second commandment?
Not false idols.
You shall love the Lord, you shall worship God alone, love the Lord.
Graven images.
And then don't build any idols, in any shape or form, of animals or whatever, and call it God. He says, I don't work that way. So, again, I think this was more a political decision on Jehu's part than a religious decision. I think he was trying to find a way to keep the northern kingdom intact and not face serious leakage of people going south to worship down in Jerusalem and so forth. So on the one hand, what he did was effective in defeating Baal worship, and Baal worship was pretty much, I think, eliminated at this point in the northern kingdom. But the other form of idolatry was stayed in Bethel and in Dan. So let's finish it up, the verse 30 down through the end of this chapter, 36. Can someone read that for us?
The Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in accomplishing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab all I had in mind to do, your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the fourth generation. Yet Jehu was not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. In those days the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel. Hazael overpowered the Israelites throughout their territory, east of the Jordan and all the land of Gilead, the region of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, from Aror by the Arnon Gorge through Gilead to Bashan. As for the other events of Jehu's reign, all he did and all his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehu rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. And Jehoahaz, his son, succeeded him as king. The time that Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years.
28 years. served as the king and, you know. So what does it say about Jehu, and what are some of the takeaways for us?
Well, he wasn't totally into it for the Lord. I think he was into it more for himself, figuring if he can get rid of Baal and those worshipers, that he'd have more control. He said he's not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. But it doesn't say, I mean, is there somewhere later on where it says how he died throughout the 28 years? Because it didn't seem like he had a...
Slept with his father, so he died, I guess, the natural death.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that he died a nasty death, like...
Yeah, sleep is a euphemism they use, you know, when the people die in peace, you know, or it was not.
Natural death.
I'm
We'd
just,
have to look in Second Chronicles to see if, yeah, I don't know.
I'm just impressed with, you know, how God wants all of our heart and how easy it is for things to get in their idols. I mean, John talks about that. He says, dear children, keep yourself from idols, because they're always trying to sneak in there. And, you know, we may, as Jehu, kind of get something right, but if our heart is pulled away, I mean, the Lord is looking at our heart every single morning. He just gets up and we get up and he scans our heart to just see which way we're being pulled, you know. And that's why we're here today, right, for fellowship. So we're...
And I wonder if this is a warning. Jehu thought he was fulfilling Elijah's,
Right, prophecy.
and he was doing it for God and doing it right. But we can go to excess
Yeah.
and start going over the limit and not. So it's a warning. You may think you're doing what's right in God's eyes, and may have started out right,
Mm,
but walk lightly
That's
and
it.
check it in.
yeah. Walk humbly, it says, with your God.
I think a lot of the Old Testament's warning to us, not just Jehu, just a lot of it, you know,
Sure.
just got, that's why we're studying it, and say, okay, where did this guy?
For instance, in the book of Hebrews, you know, let's put it now with today apply to us. The Bible says, you know, it's appointed for a man die, and after comes the judgment. So these two great appointments, you know, one we can miss a lot of appointments, you know, through life, but that appointment of that always you're gonna face, and the other one, judgment by God, you're gonna face all of that. Then those they are under the mighty blood, the precious blood of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, though they pass, you know, is not condemnation for those are rewards. But those who are not, they're going to face judgment. No, very clear, you know. But people, you know, they do God's word, they just think they all like stories about, very clear. So God, because they don't bring judgment now, doesn't mean you can pass by, you know, none of us, you know, or in this life and life to come, God's the God of justice, and all of us face
I think
that.
Jeff's point is like really important in that we could do something, but we can't go off half-cocked or get presumptuous that we'll just keep marching in some direction there. You know, we need to
In the
really
name of the
be,
Lord.
yeah, we need to be
Amen.
careful, you know,
Yeah.
because God may have us do something different.
Yeah, and to think, because God blessed me in this, whatever else I did must be
Yeah.
okay. At the same time, I'm struck here in verse 30, it says, "The Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in accomplishing what is right in my eyes," and so forth. He said, I'm going to bless you and give you a dynasty up to four generations. And I thought, God really wants to bless. That's his heart, that's his first instinct, is to bless. He blesses obedience. And in spite of imperfect servants and all the rest, you know, God's heart is to bless and enable in spite of our imperfections. So I'm encouraged on the one hand that God didn't take all that was bad that Jehu had done and just that overshadowed the good he had done. He is fair and just. Obviously, he doesn't justify the abuse and the overkill, but he did bless the basic obedience to his command. All right. So he had 28 years in office, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, he was labeled as another bad king in the northern kingdom. And the 4 generations that came after him weren't any better.
No one was good in the 19 was bad.
Yeah. So let's jump into chapter 11.
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
I mean, what I thought was interesting is the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel
Yeah.
at that time. Figured just start shrinking it, and because
Yeah. And why was that? Why was he reducing it?
because they were getting out of hand with too many, it was too spread out, and there wasn't enough proper, I want to say governing. I mean, not government, but proper governing of the Israelites, or the people that were there, the kings and whatnot.
Well, wouldn't you want to just keep that group, that people that were loyal to the Lord, you know, keep them so a time would come when they could then expand, it seems to me.
Yeah. I think this is part of God's discipline. He's trying to get their attention over and over again, you know. And disobedience, he said in the Old Testament, I've just finished reading Deuteronomy. And, you know, at one point, he says, when you get into the land, he says, I want these tribes to be on Mount Ebal, and this other half of Israel's tribe represented to be on the opposite mountain. And one would pronounce the curses of the Lord for disobedience, and the other would pronounce the blessings of obedience. And he warned them. He says, if you stray and disobey, first God will bring in discipline, and it may be famine, loss of crops, it may be, and then even foreign intrusions, and hardships and so forth. He wanted to use means that were graphic and real to sort of get their attention. I mean, if you say, I wonder how I'm doing with the Lord, all you had to do was to look out your back window and say, how's the North 40 doing? You know, is anything growing up there or not? If it was growing well, you think, well, maybe I'm okay. If it was bleak and dry, you think, oops, something's gone wrong. It was a very tangible way of God helping his people know whether they were in blessing or out of walk, out of fellowship with him.
Dan, I was just thinking this passage might be helpful when talking about, you know, the judgment and how God views things. And it says, if any man builds, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, if any man builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each man's work. If what he has built survives, he will receive his reward. If it's burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. So you think about some of the things that we build on. You know, there's some stuff that, you know, we're doing right, and other stuff, it's really not of much value.
Yeah.
And the day of judgment, it's all going to be revealed.
Yeah, sobering words, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into chapter 11, and let's just read through verse 11. And this is actually picking up the story where we left off back in chapter 9, verse 27. But Athaliah and Joash. So first 8 verses, if someone would.
Now when Athaliah, the mother of,
I just say Ahaziah.
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 saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal family. Jehoshaphat,
Jehoshaphat.
It's pronounced just
the
like it
daughter
looks.
of King Joram, sister of Ahaz, took Joash, the son of Ahijah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being put to death. And she put him in his nurse in the bedroom. Thus they hid him from Athaliah, so that he was not put to death. And he remained with her 6 years, hidden in the house of the Lord, while Athaliah reigned over the land. Joash anointed king of Judah. But in the seventh year, Jehoiakim, sent and brought the captains of the Kerites, and if the guards had them come to him in the house of the Lord. He made a covenant with them and put them under oath in the house of the Lord. And he showed them the king's son, and he commanded them, this is the thing that you shall do. 1/3 of you, 1/3 of you. Those who come off duty on the Sabbath and guard the king's house. Another third being at the gate, serve, and a third at the gate behind the guards shall guard the palace. And the 2 divisions of you which come on duty in force of the Sabbath and guard the house of the Lord on behalf of the king shall surround the king, each with his weapons in his hand. And whoever approaches the ranks is to be put to death. Be with the king when he does out and when he comes in.
Good,
When he
thank
goes
you.
out. when he comes in.
Good, thank you. All right, so Athaliah. Now, who is she?
The mother of Ahaziah,
Isaiah.
And who is Ahaziah?
the son of Jehoram,
Yeah.
king of Judah.
He was a king of Judah. So this is his mom. This is his mother, Athaliah. So she knows her son is dead. He was killed by whom?
Jehu.
Jehu, right? And and so it says when she saw that her son was dead, how did she respond? How did she act?
She
She
destroyed the
killed
whole royal family.
Yeah, all the descendants of the same thing.
Yeah.
Eliminate all the.
It says, yeah, she said she was the daughter of King Jehoram and the sister of Ahaziah. Oh,
No, that was-
no, I'm sorry,
yeah,
that's
skip it.
the one.
Daughter of Jezebel.
Went about, and anyway, she tried to destroy the whole rule of, here's Athaliah, and she starts slaughtering her grandchildren. What in the world is possessive? Why is she doing this, do you think?
Was very common in Israel to eliminate the ones they can have direct sex to the throne. And this time was one spare and he'll become king late, but she want to try eliminate all of them.
Did she want to rule?
Yeah, she ruled
Exactly,
for 7
that's it. She wanted to rule
She ruled for 7.
at any price. Can you imagine someone killing your own family?
Insane.
It's unbelievable.
In a weird way, she was doing God's work because he still wanted to eliminate the rest of the family, right? The rest of the.
Not the royal family.
Oh, no, the royal
This
family.
is the Judah. This
No,
is southern-
now-
Oh, I'm
Southern
sorry, I'm
Kingdom,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay,
you
I'm
shifted.
a little lost here, okay.
So remember
I tell you,
too,
I get lost. I find myself going back and forth with the names. and
You have he's got the
They're so
chart.
similar to each other.
I know it is a challenge. And it jumps back and forth between northern, southern, But here,
Okay.
there's close ties because Ahab and Jezebel had children. And Athaliah is a daughter of, guess who?
Jezebel.
Jezebel. Where do you think she got her
It's in the
morals,
genes.
morals and
Moral
values?
training. It's in the DNA.
The DNA. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Oh, I see. So she wasn't destroying her family, she was destroying.
Yes, she
No,
was.
she was.
Oh, her
Yeah,
family.
She
yeah.
has own family too.
She was killing the next heir.
Yeah.
She
Oh.
didn't want the heirs to come to power. She wanted the whole thing,
Yeah.
just like
Black
that.
Widow, yeah. She was willing to do anything to gain control of Judah.
So who's the one that she put the nurse with?
Okay.
No, from there.
The nurse her name is Jehoshaphat, and she's married to the high priest Jehoiada, and so while the slaughter of all the family members was taking place,
This is
this
her
woman,
child?
huh?
No,
This is her?
no.
So who is the nurse?
This is the grandson of Athaliah.
Okay, so
The
she
only
saved
one
the
survived.
grandson.
This is the one that
That's what
survived,
she did.
because this nurse stepped in, rescued him, took him away, put him in a
Well, actually, it was Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, the sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among
Yeah,
the royal
that's
princes.
Jehoshaphat.
Yes.
He was, they reside in the temple for 7 years until God brings judgment to Athaliah.
She's, in my mind, she's one of the heroes in the Old Testament. Because behind this, what do you think what kind of satanic influence, what's going on among the powers and the
It's King
principalities
David's,
and powers?
it's the seed of King David,
What is Satan trying to do at this point in the
trying to
flow of
get
history?
the Messiah's seed.
Yeah, he's trying to eliminate the Messiah.
Amazing.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
it would come through David's family,
Yeah.
and it would come through, eventually through Joash, his life is spared by this woman. And then others rally around, as we see, and he's spared and eventually becomes king. He's not a perfect one, but he was a whole lot more godly, at least while Jehoiada was still head priest.
Isn't that
So the whole
amazing?
Yeah,
So the whole time God is trying to eliminate a line of people, Satan's trying to eliminate a line of people.
exactly. That's a good observation. Yeah, Jeff, yeah.
Yeah.
Cosmic
This happened again in history.
King Herod.
Fast forward 1,500 years.
King Herod wanted to kill every child under the age of 2.
Two.
So go to Egypt,
Yeah,
get out.
yeah. And so, we tend to look at history, the flow of it horizontally, but we also have to look at it from God's perspective and what he's doing. The spiritual forces at work as well, the cosmic conflict. And as we just sort of go through a day and our world spins on, but sometimes we lose sight of other forces at work for good or for bad.
Okay, so just to get, the granddaughter
Yeah,
that's saved, or was it?
the grandson,
Grandson,
Joash,
grandson that's saved,
And become king.
and he becomes king.
and he's the grandson of,
He's the grandson of Ahaziah, which is the grandson, goes all the way back to David, Solomon, that line, the royal line of David, and he's in that line. Yeah. So anyway, we'll pick up that story and see how God intervenes and rescues Joash. And can I borrow your pen? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
sure.
always forget. Where was I, George? I was sending my Monday morning text to George's. Where are we? Where did we leave off? And so, anyway.
And Joe was working at my house. I said, Joe, end of chapter 10, I think.
Thank you. All right. Any requests for prayer or praise? Anything?
I just want an update on last week. We prayed for Mike and for Lauren and